Canada had two great tungsten producers in the Northwest Territories, Mactung and Cantung. And the Chinese controlled the supply and shut them down on their price point. So, we've
Well,
neglected this for 40 years. And
well, it's not happening
now we're
anymore.
scrambling to try and get supply of this stuff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Betweenplays Stock Market Strategies. So we're here once again, but with a new company. They are listed on the CSE as NIOB, North American Niobium and Critical Minerals. With us here today, we have CEO Murray Nye. How you doing?
Very good. Albert, nice to meet you. Nice to be on your program.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. And we have Vice President of Exploration Clyde McMillan. How you doing?
Hello, Albert. Thanks for having us.
Well, you're very welcome. So basically, things are really happening this week. All right, there's a lot of engagement. We see the stock going. Basically, drills are turning at Seigneurie. 3 ATI authorizations now in hand. A new advisory firm that has been brought in this week to deepen the First Nations engagement, and the first assays are on the horizon. So, how do you guys feel about that?
Well, we're very, very excited. It was a little bit lag time getting the permits or the ATIs in place. We thought that might happen a little sooner, but finally we did get it, and we were able to engage the drill company right away. Thanks to Clyde and his team. We got a great team on this, by the way. We've got some excellent people in the field. Um, and we're getting the drill going. The drilling is going very, very well. I think we're getting about 100, about 40 meters a day, somewhere in that range on two shifts.
Okay.
So we're getting 40 meters each shift, I should say.
Okay.
So we're making very, very good progress.
Okay. So basically, you've had a relentless 6 weeks on the newswire. ATI granted at Seigneurie. All right. That was on March the 26th. And the drill started on, I believe, something around April 2nd,
Correct.
something around that time. So the ATIs for Barty and Blanchette, April 9th. Transfire advisory firm this week. Walk us through the sequence. Basically, is this a choreographed rollout, or is just the team moving that fast?
Well, it's a bit of both. The permitting sequence was planned. You can't drill until the ATIs are in place. So we filed and approved in the right order. Seigneurie was always going to be first. It has the strongest surface expression, the most defined target. Barty and Blanchette follow. Transferred was deliberate. You don't wait until there's a problem to build relationships with First Nations. You get ahead of it. There's a plan, but the velocity is real.
Okay, that's really interesting. And every junior says world class, right? World class this, world class that. But you've quietly assembled a bench that's raising eyebrows. Like, give us basically like a 1 minute tour. Like, who's on the board? What do they bring? And specifically, when you get a chance, when you get to the name, Monsieur Olivier Tavchandjian, I believe you spell it, you state it that way, and he joined around January from Hud
Yeah.
Bay. So,
Yes.
what did landing him signal?
Well, we're very, very pleased with that. It gives us an inroad into one of the top mining companies in Canada, Hud Bay. We're, really pleased that he decided to join this board. He brings a lot of experience, 35 years mining experience. Came to Hud Bay, I believe, in 2023. He's got resource expertise in resource estimation, life of mine planning, the full cycle.
Okay.
And that's not a name you press release. That's a name signals you're building something real.
Yeah.
And the team is built to execute and the drill results will affect that. Also rounding out the board, we have the Honorable Carrie Lynn Finley, Joseph Caraba, former CEO of Cliffs Natural Resources, and also serving right now on the board of U.S. Antimony, a very critical mineral company that's in the news all the time, and Mike Petrino with 35 years of operations and project development. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, you've hired this company. You've retained Transfile, all right, specifically for. Listen, I'm going to butcher the name, all right?
Yeah.
Excuse me to all the First Nations out there.
But
It's not my tongue. Atikamek, I would believe
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
right. Atikamek. Yeah.
yep.
Atikamek. That's
Very
right.
well done, Albert.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm trying. So some juniors treat First Nations like as a checkbox, all right? You're clearly not. Why the proactive move? What does drilling through the year actually require on the ground?
You know, we're engaging the local academic community as much as possible. That's
Okay.
the baseline. That's not the ceiling. Transparent was retained, not retained to file paperwork. They're there to help us build relationships ongoing. If you want to drill through the year in Quebec, you need to trust on the ground. And consultation is a legal requirement. Respect is a business requirement, and we're trying to do both.
Okay. All right, I see. It makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, the First Nations play a huge part in everything that's happens in North America, and rightfully so. I mean, it's just the way it is, and it's great to have the engagement and that you're being proactive in that sense.
Albert, may I add afterwards
Oh, of
about the
course.
academics?
Hmm?
Yeah, so I just wanted to also add on. We've already had many meetings with the Atikameks. We've had direct contact with the local chief territories, with the Council of Wimotasi, and so far it's been really positive. Um, it's positive because we see very good synergies ahead of us.
Okay.
We They need jobs, but above all, they want their land to be respected. So
Yes.
there's we're absolutely working with them at the moment. So we're trying to engage them in our operations so that they can see that it's a benefit to everyone,
Yes.
the junior mining industry,
Yes.
and transfer help us do that. So that's why since we're drilling throughout the year, we need that continuous presence on the land,
Yeah.
and we want to create that genuine goodwill. We want to be authentic about everything.
Oh, that's absolutely perfect. Well, that definitely the route to go.
Mm.
That is, especially in the mining industry. I mean, I don't think there's no other better way or no other way to really go about it. So um, that's very very good, and it sets the bar. You know what I mean? It sets the bar. So
Absolutely.
I'm just curious about the supply chain thesis, basically. When we're looking at the macro, all right, the CBMM in Brazil, all right, they control, let's just say, 82, 85% of the global niobium that's out there, right? NIOBEC in Quebec is pretty much the only commercial producer, right,
Right.
that we have in North America. The U.S. has not been producing niobium since 1959. We have the Department of Defense that classifies it as a critical mineral. So, where does NIOB fit in that picture? And are you already in conversations with the Canadian, US governments, buyers, or basically defense primes?
Yeah, we are. The supply risk just isn't a niobium story either, Albert. It's a rare earth story as well. We
Yeah,
have NdPr and Dy, the magnetic rare earths that go into EV motors and defense systems.
yeah,
That faces the same problem, supply concentrated in one jurisdiction. NIOB isn't, NIOB sits on both. We're laying the groundwork for future discussions with government and industry. Every junior has to be realistic about where they are in the development timeline.
yeah.
But we're looking forward to what that project can become. The strategic case is being made for us by the geopolitics.
So naturally, like anything that's as important as niobium is something that we just can't take lightly. That's for
Correct.
sure. When we look at money and milestones, you went into 2026, you were fully funded, 2.69 million exploration budget. Let's just do a little bit of a rapid fire there on cash position today. Your burn rate, the next three operational catalyst subscribers should circle on their calendar between now and Q3. Can you go through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, don't besides the call it the hard dollars, we also raised 4.8 million in flow through a financing back in December. Actually, both flow throughs were oversubscribed, so that was a very good indication. And we did that flow through roughly around $1.40 to $1.50. So there was very, very little dilution to the company's stock position in raising that money.
Yeah.
Uh, so that would fund a 10,000 meter drill program. we've deployed about 1.3 million of that so far. The
Okay.
program covers Seigneurie, Bardy, and Blanchette, all permitted. Plus, we've allocated meterage for 3 additional alkaline intrusions, and I'm sure Clyde can get into that in the next little section about what that's all about.
Yeah.
But we've got strong niobium and rare earth potential. Between now and Q3, the assay results from Seigneurie, drill mobilization at Bardy and Blanchette, and continued target definition with new intrusions. We've expended about 1.3 so far, and that leaves us with about 3.5 left on exploration. So we've got a robust treasury. We're ready to go for the rest of the year. So I think it's a good indication. I think we can put news releases out all year because of that cash position. So the story will continue.
Well, that's good. And then
Yeah.
and then you'll be back over here continuing the story for our
Absolutely.
subscribers.
Also,
Especially
that's
when we get
great.
some drill results. Yeah.
That's right, absolutely. So, Clyde, you started the drilling on April 2nd, right? Now we have like the meters planned this phase, turn around to the lab, realistic window, first assays, hitting the tape. When are we looking at, for that kind of stuff?
we're aiming to drill above 10,000 meters this year.
Yeah.
And well, currently, the turnaround time at the labs, um, about 1 or 2 months. So technically, we should be able to get results in the middle by the end of Q2. So that's the realistic target here too. Of course, we'll have to receive the assays and then do our internal assessment before releasing a PR. So press release. So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, and just getting back to the supply chain, Albert,
Yeah.
remember a few years ago, Ford was absolutely handicapped because they couldn't get a chip and all their F-150s sat
Oh,
there.
100%. Yeah, I remember that.
So, some of this stuff is as critical to the supply chain as something like that. So if you don't have it, you can't make it. So it is very, very interesting in that respect that you got to have it. We've neglected mining for 40 years.
Yeah, so that's why we need pretty much companies like yourselves, all right? Everybody out there on the CSC, we have NIOB, right? North American Niobium and Critical Minerals. So, Murray Nye, I had a great time with you here on the show. Same thing with you, Clyde McMillan. I really hope that for our subscribers that you come back, when you have results, anytime you're welcome. Even if you want to just talk about certain things, it'd be great to have you on the show.
Between Plays, it's the journey and what you do between where you are and where you want to be. Research, prepare, plan, and execute your strategy. Do your DD and stay strong in visualizing and achieving your goals. Our strategy is unique since 2020. An original concept imitated, never duplicated. Real conversations with media influencers, educational and expert speakers, analysts and consultants. Between Plays, bridging the gap between companies and investors.